What's good, everybody? Thank you so much for tuning into the Writer's Room. We are back with another recap and review of the episode 8 of P-Valley Season 2. You guys, this episode was really good. I was really looking forward to closing a couple of stories, i.e. Derek. We didn't get to it, but let's go ahead and dig into this episode. We first start off with Mercedes on the pole, trying to get back into the club. We know that P-Valley is about to open up again, but she is struggling with some inner demons because, of course, we know that Diamond removed that 7 pounds of weight or pressure on her shoulder, but somehow she's still mentally blocking herself from climbing on this pole and doing her thing. Because I don't know, during the Mercedes experience, she was giving us life, okay? But on this pole, she was struggling. And Uncle Clifford came up to her and told her, hey, it's not your shoulder that's messed up. It's more of your mindset and how you're approaching the pole. And Mercedes kind of came back at her and was like, look, you have a whole nother situation on your hand. Maybe this P-Valley, maybe this club is not the problem. Maybe it's you. You better do something about it. And so we know that she's referring to the sale that Autumn is trying to make with the club. And maybe Uncle Clifford will actually go through with this sale. Who knows? But we do know that this is a struggle throughout the series. Next, we transition over to Uncle Clifford and LIL MURDA. We see that he is getting murdered in the back of his head, done by yours truly, Uncle Clifford. And I didn't know Uncle Clifford could cut hair, you guys. This was something new, but they were bickering and arguing like an old married couple. LIL MURDA was sitting in the chair getting his hair cut and was waiting on the phone for the hospital because, of course, from the last episode, Granny Ernestine is still in the hospital. And Uncle Clifford is calling every 45 minutes, every 30 to 45 minutes to see about her grandmother, which is completely understandable, but clearly she is working the hospital nerves. And LIL MURDA's too. And I kind of like this bantering back and forth between MURDA and Uncle Clifford, just because, last episode they did something, and I think it was too early for them to get back to it because LIL MURDA has a lot on his mind and is holding a lot of secrets, and so is Uncle Clifford in regards to how she really feels about what's going on in her life right now. So we next transition back to Mercedes. Mercedes is running with her dog, Body on Point, and her dog kind of runs off into what it perceives as a familiar face. And we see that Maine is back, you guys. Maine seems to be out of prison. He was let out early due to COVID going rampant throughout the jailhouse. So they let out people on good behavior or if it was, a minor offense. And we see that Maine has on an ankle bracelet, so that lets us know that he's pretty limited on what he can and can't do, but his crew decided to throw him a block party for his early release, and he's inviting Mercedes because he's trying to start back where they left off. So we next transition over to our girl Mississippi, aka Keyshawn, and Autumn Night, aka Haley. There are so many names and aliases, but we see that Mississippi is sneaking off. She told Derek that she wanted some French fries. And this is also the restaurant where her and Derek had their first date. So this is pretty like a 180 for Mississippi because she's bringing Autumn these birth certificates for her and her children. And she's planning on running away from Derek. I don't know how this plan is going to go, but Autumn kind of tests her and is like, where are you going to go? And Miss Keyshawn was about to open up her mouth like, well, I do have, Autumn had to stop her like, no, you can't tell anyone, not even the people that are supposed to be helping you. You never know what's going to go down. And so Mississippi does tell Autumn that, hey, I looked up Haley Colton and she died. And Haley tells her, how can she die when she's sitting at a restaurant drinking coffee with you right now? So this was a moment of clarity that Mississippi finally gained the trust of Autumn, aka Haley, and we find out that Autumn's name is Haley, or at least Keyshawn finds that out. But we make the plan that Keyshawn comes back to P-Valley one last time, and she will take all of the money at the door, that Derek will take all the money on the floor, and she'll take everything else that's been made that night so that she can have enough money to run off with her children and never look back. But once Keyshawn leaves and Autumn Night finishes her coffee, she looks on TV, and who is it? It is Kyle Wayne trashing Andre, and we find out that Andre's dad is not dead, that he does have a dad, and he's in prison. He's on death row for a crime. And so Andre is considered a liar. The race is pretty much going down the wrong turn in terms of the mayor race. And also we see that Pastor Patrice was a victim to Kyle Wayne's trashing on this. And we know that with politics, there is no safe haven. Either you lie and it's gonna come out, or just tell the truth. We see that Corbin is upset because Corbin is putting all his money behind Andre, of course, the start of this casino, and finding out that Andre lied when this is so small. I don't know why he lied, but of course it's gonna come out. And we see that Corbin acts a fool, tells everybody to clear the room because he wants to know, why would you do that? Now Patrice is in front of us, because Patrice hops on the TV and tells the news reporter, like, I did a lot of things. I told y'all I was a hoe. I ain't got no problem hiding it. I mean, Pastor Patrice, you gotta love her. You gotta love to hate her, because she's actually good at convincing. I mean, she's good. I might actually vote for Pastor Patrice. But nonetheless, we find out that Corbin has been putting all this money behind Andre, and we have to find a way to shut Pastor Patrice down or take her out of the race. Next, we pop in on Keyshawn at the house cleaning up, and Derek comes home and brings her some shoes to wear, and you can tell that he's really trying, and I'm overseeing Derek at this point, though I do see the hurt and pain in both of their eyes, and I just want this relationship to be over for good. But she tells him the shoe is too small. Look, after 2 kids, your feet widens and spreads, and it's just not my size anymore. Basically, I can't be your personal Barbie doll anymore. You can't dress me up. Like, I'm over it. This relationship, you could tell that Keyshawn has completely checked out. Next, we briefly touch on Corbin going to visit his brother Kyle, which we know is sabotaging the race, at least for Andre, because he would rather see his half-brother suffer, because Kyle really wanted to get this casino for himself. So now that he sees Corbin is trying to get in on it, he wants to sabotage it as much as possible, despite him being his brother. And we know that Kyle has no respect for his brother Corbin because he is half black. So he feels like he should not be heir to anything that he owns, and he shouldn't get his way with this casino. But we briefly go into the next scene, and it is our girl, Georgie. And we know that Georgie is a widow. She is living her best life and has Coca-Cola soda cans in her hair, giving her curls. And this part, I mean, you can see and cut the tension, the racial tension, with a knife. You see the beautician is like, hey, I'm Shanae's beauty shop is down the street, when Haley comes in. And Haley basically pays them dust and tells Georgie that I will not be accepting your offer. I want 10 million. Now we see that Georgie feels threatened, and she cuts on her best poker face. She lights her cigar and she's like, that's my final answer, dear. And we see that Autumn Night is like, well, I'll see you at the election. Or shall I say Haley? This is Haley talking mess, okay? Haley tells Georgie, I'll see you at the election because I'm not taking your $5 million. Now we see that we have 2 alpha females going at it. And so we'll see how this turns out, and if Georgie will come through with that 10 million the way that Haley wants it. We sadly transition over to Big Teak. He is being, prepped for the casket. And we see that Wody is the one that's doing the prepping, of course. And Wody is having a conversation with MURDA. And I love this conversation because it does trace back to the episode where Wody killed Rome. And we find out that MURDA does know that Wody killed Rome. And he asks why. And Wody's like, look, we all are God and we're all the devil. Like, we can do both things. We can be both good and evil. And I just love that it touched on that. But we see that MURDA was unaware that there was a real tape out there. He did not initially believe Wody when he says there's a sex tape out there. And MURDA is like, okay, what are you talking about? Wody just shuts it down like, look, I seen it. Rome has that video, and that is why I took him out. And somebody has to make it out the hood. So I did it for you, MURDA. I did it for us. Like, we got to go. Why can't it be you that makes it out the hood? And so we realized that MURDA was actually going to Big Teek's funeral, and that is what he was hiding from Uncle Clifford at the beginning of the episode. We transition back to the pink and we see that Uncle Clifford, everyone is there getting ready and prepped for the reopening of P-Valley. And we see that Mercedes is there. Uncle Clifford is really happy and trying to put on a good face, trying to make Mercedes feel good. But everyone's telling them that, hey, we're barely up to code and we can only work at 50% capacity. But we see that Autumn Night is trying to get Keyshawn as the headliner. So she kind of preps and makes way by saying, Mercedes, I want to see your dance routine. What do you have going? And she is completely unimpressed. And I have to admit, it was a struggle and cringe worthy to actually watch Mercedes struggle on this pole, because we just seen her killing it at the Mercedes experience. So we see that Autumn Night makes this as a way for her to bring in Keyshawn. And we see that Roulette and Whisper are so in love with Keyshawn. Everyone is completely shocked. Uncle Clifford is like, hold up. And Mercedes is like, hell no, she can't be back. And we look over and we see that Diamond is with Big Bone, but he is a little starstruck. I mean, he talked a lot of mess at that store on the first episode when he seen Keyshawn, but just then he got A-struck. He got bit by the love bug and fell right back in love with Keyshawn. So I do wonder how his relationship with Big Bone is going to do with Keyshawn being back at the club. But we see that Roulette and Whisper are in love with Keyshawn and telling her, I love your lashes. We're wearing your lashes right now. Like, I just want to be just like you. And it's really cute. And you can see that Keyshawn is putting on this front like she really wants to be there, but Mercedes knows what's up. She tells Keyshawn that yes, your locker is still available and your vanity is still available. Nobody wanted to take that spot. And Mercedes and Keyshawn kind of have this understanding that they're both back at the pink under the wrong circumstances. Mercedes doesn't want to be there. We know that Mercedes had her last dance, supposedly. When is she actually going to have her last dance? We don't know. And we see that Keyshawn had to come back as well. And of course, Mercedes doesn't know why, but she basically said, if you're back, that means that you had to come back. All the while we hear Uncle Clifford and Haley going off on each other. Uncle Clifford is done with this because the club is getting out of her hands. Haley is bringing in new blood. She's bringing in Keyshawn. She's bringing in people and not telling Uncle Clifford. So it's no wonder why Uncle Clifford is upset and ready to leave. So she gets in the car, but we see in the back there her mom is popping up everywhere. I don't know who this young woman is. She kind of reminds me of Angie Stone. Very beautiful though. But we see that her mom is a little bit of a trickster. She's trying to get Uncle Clifford riled up. And we know that her mom came to visit Granny Ernestine as well last episode. So we'll see what happens. I still want to know what happened to Uncle Clifford's mom. Nonetheless, we transition over to MURDA. He is at the funeral of Big Teek. And you see that everyone is just paying their respects, putting all types of diamonds and gold on him. And when he leaves the funeral home, he sees that there's a video out, and it is our guy Pico coming around claiming this body, claiming to have, offed Big Teek. And we know that that is completely untrue. And it seems as though nobody knows that Big Teek actually offed himself. And so Pico is going around claiming that he did this, and MURDA's crew want blood. The streets need a body. This is the same thing. We need Pico off because he's claiming that he did this to Big Teek. So what you gonna do? And MURDA, unfortunately, has to, live up to his name. So we'll see how that works out later. Next, we get into the girls are back at P-Valley, and we see that Keyshawn and Mercedes are warming up. This is basically her partner again, like season 1, yes. But we see that Mercedes is still in competition with everyone. She is jealous and wants to take over that headlining spot. And of course, Roulette and Whisper love a good game. They love to see the girls fighting. Haley tells Mercedes, look, you're not going to headline. I think you still need to work on your moves. And we see that Keyshawn gets up on the pole and it's like she never left. Of course, she's been doing this and she's never had to suffer with the things Mercedes has suffered with. But Mercedes does leave abruptly, and we see that she actually got a phone call from Michelle. Michelle is her daughter's mother or guardian, and we see that Michelle found out about the abortion that Mercedes took Terica too. So she wants to know, why would you do that? And why would you make that type of move without my consent? And I am her guardian. I am her legal guardian. And we see that Terica is caught in the middle of this. And it makes me wonder, did Terica use Mercedes because she knew that Mercedes would be the one to convince her to get rid of that pregnancy? Terica still realizes that Michelle is her recognized mother. Like, she sees Mercedes as being the lady who birthed her, but not necessarily her mom. And so Terica does leave out with Michelle and tells her, don't worry about it. Like, I know that she's drunk right now, but I will take her home. You taught me how to drive. Okay, so we go to Corbin, and Corbin is doing some handiwork around the yard, trying to get this water going. And Uncle Clifford pulls up, and she basically tells Corbin, look, you want to figure out how to win this race. I'm going to let you know how. You need to give Pastor Patrice some money. Money talks for Pastor Patrice more than anything. She really doesn't want to win this mayoral race. She actually just wants the money and the power that goes along with it. And so this does set off a light bulb in Corbin's brain, and he goes back to thinking, okay, maybe I can bribe Patrice to drop out of the race. We transition back to Roulette and Whisper, and we knew that this duo was going to cause some trouble. We see that Roulette, of course, from a few episodes ago, we found out that the guy that she was, having fun with at the Pink wanted to have fun with Whisper, and he really wanted to pay her 2 bands just to, go down on her. And Whisper is really like, okay, my third eye is tingling, like this is not feeling good of Roulette. And so we see that Roulette is basically pimping your girl Whisper out. But before we get to the meat of the episode, which is that scene, we go back to Andre, and Andre is just sitting at the house doing what he does best, sulking in his misery. Oh my gosh, this has to be the most depressed person on the show. And it's a $10,000 check, and he still has not cashed that check. But Haley comes over and she has some moonshine, and she's like, you look like you need to relax. And while they're having fun, drinking and everything, Andre tells her all about his childhood, growing up with a father in prison. And we learn that Haley's never found her parents, and that at least you can see and touch your dad, even though it's through a plexiglass. And so we do learn a little bit more about Haley and her upbringing and how she so wanted to find her parents. And of course, they kind of have their moment and get it on, basically. But before we do that, we see that Haley comes up with the idea to have a fundraiser for his campaign. And she tells him, you need to cash that check too. But we go back to our girl Whisper and Roulette. Roulette is playing Candy Crush and is acting a fool in the bathroom. All the while, Whisper is faking an orgasm for this dude who seems to be giving this sloppy toppy, okay? But he's not doing a good job. And we see that once he's done, he throws the money on the ground, and Whisper sees that this is not enough money. You're $200 short. Roulette comes out of the restroom and is like, what's going on? I hear some yelling. Whisper tells her that he's $200 short. We learned that he didn't really give a damn about Whisper. So he's like, she can't even moan right. And that's when she lets him know, I was faking the entire time for you. Roulette is like, damn, girl, I didn't know you had it in you. And he proceeds to choke Whisper. Now, at this point, we knew this was going to set Roulette off. In Roulette, we find out why Roulette's name is Roulette. She puts a gun to this man's head, and she proceeds to play her favorite game. I'm sorry, I could not stop doing that. Her favorite game in the most country voice. But it's Russian roulette. And she is serious. He tries to call her bluff, and she literally just hits the trigger on him. and he starts getting scared. She tells Whisper to pull down his pants and basically just makes him feel the way that she's felt and the way that other women have felt being on their knees or being forced to do something and still being treated like trash. So Whisper does hesitate a little bit, but she starts to have fun with it as well. Once she sees how like scared this guy is, they jack his car and of course like demean him and make him feel completely emasculated, which he put that on himself, so I'm not even going to complain about that. But they do dip out with his car, and so we get to the scene. This was my favorite scene of the episode. Lil MURDA and Pico face off. Pico comes out and we can see and infer that Pico is really just represents all of the men that are online being Twitter gangsters and using their Twitter fingers to try to shoot jabs at everyone. And we see that he is claiming a body. Remember at the beginning of the episode, he was claiming to have shot Big Teak. And we realize that you're nothing like what you're portraying yourself to be. You're affiliating yourself and committing to something that you have no idea what it is. And it was in that moment that MURDA knew he had to off him, even though he truly didn't want to. You can see it in his eyes that he does sympathize with Pico in this moment, and he actually empathizes with Pico because he has to be something that he doesn't necessarily want to be. However, he does commit to it because he does have his crew around. I think that if his crew wasn't around to pick up Pico's body, that he probably would have let Pico go. Or maybe not, because of course he had to make a turn. He had to make a move on Pico's crew because they claim to have off Big Teak. So this is a part of the game. This is a part of the cycle. And unfortunately, Pico made his move and he should have been more careful. Nonetheless, we switch over to the next scene, and it is Mercedes going over to the block party for Maine. And we see that Maine is actually a part of the crew that Pico was riding with. And they let him know that Pico just got clipped. We've got to go. Let's strap up. And Mercedes stops Maine and is like, you don't want to be a part of that. You still have your ankle bracelet on. You'll be right back where you came from. So that was a nice moment of her saving him from doing the same thing that made him end up in jail. However, that was not an invitation for Mercedes and Maine to hook up, although I did want them to get back together, but it's still pretty early for Mercedes and she's just not looking for that right now. And so Maine does leave her outside to like, you know what, you're right. I hope you get what you want out of life, and I hope you get what you're looking for. Now, he does leave Mercedes just there sitting in the chair alone, and this was confusing, but also just a realistic reminder that Maine, just like all of the other men, didn't want anything from you but the sex. And I think Mercedes is still struggling with that. Next, we transition over to Uncle Clifford, and she's having a hell of a day because she's not getting any information on Granny Ernestine. But not only that, she goes to visit her mom because we seen her earlier in the car, and we realized that Uncle Clifford hasn't visited her mom in weeks or months. But we know that Uncle Clifford has always gone to the grave to visit her mom. We still don't know much about the mom, but we do know that Uncle Clifford was really close to her mom. So I do hope that we get more information in regards to what happened, because she has been gone for the past 20 years. And I do wonder how that's shaped Uncle Clifford into this person, or what she's done in the past to get her to this point. And so we get to the next scene, and it is our girl, Miss Pastor Patrice. And she has her little friend on the side, hyping her up, gassing her. They're getting money on this live. This seems to be the way that Pastor Patrice has been funding her campaign. And we see that she gets a $10,000 donation, and she starts hooping and hollering and really doing the most, you guys. But we find out that there is a message attached to this donation saying, "Cash me outside." So Pastor Patrice read between the lines, and she went outside to go meet this person that donated $10,000. And who does it happen to be? It is Corbin Wayne trying to bribe her. And she's like, "Money can't buy me. I am a new woman of God." You know, Pastor Patrice, same old, until he drops some more money on her. And Pastor Patrice is looking like she is second guessing herself. And it looks like she may be dropping out of the campaign once and for all. The last scene of the episode is being seen with our girl Roulette. She's with Duffy, and we see that she brought Duffy the car of Terrence, who we know to be the guy that she just stripped down and had him on his knees and, basically demeaning him. But we see that Duffy doesn't give a damn about whose car it is. He just makes mention of it that, hey, isn't Terrence going to miss this? And she's like, no, do what you got to do, and he's not going to say anything about this. Which references to the fact that she demeaned him in the hotel room and basically ended with him with a gun in his mouth and her asking who got dick sucking lips now. So this was a pivotal episode in actually seeing the darkness that Roulette can really bring to the screen. Gail Bean does a wonderful performance as Roulette. We see that it ends off with our guy MURDA in the studio, and he still has blood on his hands and on his fingers, on his rings, everything, and he's back in the studio, and I think he's gonna make a song about this and only sink himself deeper into the mayhem. But man, this episode was heated. Our characters are getting darker and darker. We have MURDA actually living up to his name, which I didn't think that he committed anything, but we see that he's not playing. And we have Mississippi actually planning on escaping from Derek, and it seems that she's serious this time. And we also have Mercedes struggling and trying to find herself as a woman and as a human being versus being sexually objected by everyone. So hopefully she does get a hold of herself and find herself outside of the pink, because we all know that everyone needs it. This episode was completely fire. It was so much going on, and cinematically was just beautiful. What do you guys think of this episode? Do you think that Mercedes is going to find herself? Will she finally have her last dance? Will Whisper and Roulette finally go head to head and face the reality that they shouldn't be a duo at all? And will Uncle Clifford go ahead and sell the club and let go of the attachment that she has with the club? So write in the comments down below, what do you think? And I'll talk to you next time on The Writers Room.